Are there essential ingredients of Agile? Yes. And in today's 5-minute short, brought to you by Success Mentors University, we are going to be covering 3 of them. I'm Joshua Barnes, and I'm joined, as always, by Al Shalloway. So, Al, how about you give us what you feel the number one or the first ingredient you would like to talk about?
Yeah, I think what in my mind the biggest shift has really been the focus on value for the customer.
Hmm.
Steve Denning in Age of Agile talks a lot about this, about how teams really need to be directly attached to focus on the customer, and that the rest of the organization needs to support them. And how you do that depends on scale and a variety of issues, but I think that's really the driving factor.
Yeah, I mean, how often do you hear teams that are like, "Hey, we just got done completing 300 story points and we pushed a release out." Do the customers care? I mean, is it something that they're able to consume and get value from, or not, right? Or is it a feature toggle or a dark release? It's like we released 300 story points worth of work. Do the customers care? And do the customers even have access to it yet?
Yeah, yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good point. In fact, you hear a lot of talk now about Scrum being feature factories that aren't
right,
actually
right.
doing that, and I think it's partly because Agile with the Agile Manifesto or Manifesto for Agile Software Development was really focused a lot on extreme programming and Scrum, in the sense that a lot of the people who wrote the manifesto were from those two camps, and those were teams. It was very team
Okay.
centric, and of course, the customer was in XP. You're supposed to have a customer to use, and in Scrum, you seem to be closer. But as Agile's expanded, ironically, the attachment to the customer has kind of gone away a little bit, because teams seem to be distance now. And when you look at larger organizations, there's more than just the team, which
Right.
kind of brings us to what I consider to be the second one, and this is the incremental delivery of value. And I want to say a couple of things about that. It's the actually not quite the delivery of value. I should say consumption of value, because, like you
Yeah.
just said, you might get it deployed, but if the customer can't use it, what good is it? I've seen companies where, and I've consulted, where they get something built, and then after that they figure out their marketing plan and everybody knows about it and the support system set up, and that should all be done from the very beginning. It's something you and I do with a DAVSC and other things with the minimum business increment, a container for all this. So it's not just delivery of value. It's kind of misspoken, even though I did say that, but it's the consumption of value. And I'm going to put one other thing. This is maybe not Agile, but it's important to recognize as Agile has shifted and grown. I do a lot of discussions with Tom Gill, who I think is really brilliant, and his Evo system predates Agile by, I don't know, 20 years. Um, he talks a lot about success values in the whole organization, and how does the business people, the executives, figure out who are the stakeholders, what are their success values for things to happen. And that's still what I mean by the delivery of value. But we have to be clear. We need to talk about this. We need to talk about what is value for all of the stakeholders involved. So even though we're focusing on the customer, we have to look at it through the eyes of the other stakeholders involved. And this may or may not be Agile as an extension of Agile, because you don't hear a lot of Agile methods don't really include this. I don't see this much in Scrum or Safe, for example, but they're of course just one way of doing Agile. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I actually need to modify. I'm going to incrementally discuss the whole three. We did 300 points, and yeah, we were a great success. And we do need to focus on the customer, but I think we also need to remember and recognize that we do have work that is valuable to the organization. If we're putting something out, and maybe the customer is not going to interact with it, but it keeps us in compliance because we're in a regulated industry, or we've paid down some technical debt, and or we've improved our quality, which, yes, that's something a customer should pick up on. So so it's focused on the customer, but it's also focused on business value, and business value isn't just strictly limited to what we would see a customer, an external customer interacting with our product.
Yeah, I actually like that example of, if there's some regulation, because the government is a stakeholder. You better satisfy them. If they've got a regulation, you can't ignore it. So
Right.
this simplistic view of it's just a team and the customer they're writing software for is actually reflected also in the fact we call them user stories. Well, I don't know. Maybe they're not just for users. This is a U.S. government regulation story. It's not a user. It's something we have to do. This is something for the executive. So again, Agile we have to go beyond the original manifesto to get what we truly need. Anyway, the third one, and I'm kind of blending two in here, but I think it's very important. I've been studying lean for, I don't know, almost 40 years, almost 40 years. In the 80s, I kind of got into it. They're in more manufacturing and business, and about 20 years ago in Agile. But the main thing about lean, I'm segueing here a little bit, lean is about learning. And I think Agile is also about learning. It's got to be quick learning based on feedback from the customer or the stakeholders and how we're working. And it should be continuous. It should be continuous learning. I personally am not a fan of 2-week learning cycles. A lot of the challenges I think teams have is because they batch their learning in the same way they batch their work. And maybe it's not a bad way to start, not always the best way in my mind anyway. There is no best way. But we have to recognize what we really want is continual learning. We shouldn't forget that if you detect something quickly and immediately work on it and improve, detection is a kind of prevention. Early detection is a kind of prevention because the next cycle, almost immediately, it will stop being a problem. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts on it is that, a lot of times I think teams are a little bit stuck just based on like how they've been maybe trained or coached or whatever, that the quick feedback they're looking for, maybe it's from the product owner, or maybe it is from, we're doing a sprint review, an iteration review. But quick learning is also, I mean, if I'm the developer and I've written some code, and I let Al know you're the test analyst, you're going to, execute some tests. Well, that's learning, right? And that's quick. If you can do that this afternoon, like we wrap up this live stream, great. I'm going to have very quick feedback. It's already still in my thoughts, but couple days, week or two goes by, then it's no longer quick learning. So it's quick learning between team members, between team members and our product owner, between our stakeholders, between our customers. I mean, we need to be looking across all of that get that as quickly as possible.
That's right. Okay, well, I think we covered it. There's a lot more, obviously, and we want to be clear that how you manifest Agile, there are any number of ways to do it, but I think value, incremental consumption of value, quick learning to improve our methods and improve our products. 5-word pick 3, those would be the 3.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us live today, as well if you're watching this on replay. If you have any questions or feedback, please post on LinkedIn. And if you've got any additional 5-minute shorts you'd like us to cover, just send us a note and we'll work it in. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.